How are we doing? Not a very exciting day so far. The Nasdaq's having an exciting day. The Russell is doing okay. How's the dollar looking? Dollar's having an okay day, so there's nothing going wrong there. Oil's over 70, even though there's a huge build in inventories. Nobody seems to care. That's because the volume is so low, though, really. Can anybody see this? Can anybody hear it? Nobody's saying anything since the first one. All right, I'll just keep going as if something's happening. Maybe. That's my plan anyway. Oh, now you're trimming it. Okay, sure. All right, apparently the video is good too. All right, so anyway, what was I saying? Yes, well, Yahoo, that's what I was going to look up. Yahoo. So I think the easiest way to check volume is just go to the SPY and see what they're doing. That's the S&P ETF. It's this very heavily traded ETF. So if you want to get a kind of look of how the market activity is, but look at it. I mean, 12.9 million people, 12.9 million volume, which is pathetic. It's already 1 o'clock. It's probably going to finish up around 30 for the day. Look at this week, 28, 30, 34. I mean, why are we even open? But that's really where we're sinking down to. The end of the year is spiraling into this sort of like no volume, no participation, and just complete nonsense. And it means that everything that you see being traded, though, is also nonsense. It's meaningless. So all this activity, and if you widen it out, I mean, you can see how the here you have volume bars that touch up on this line, right, which is a million trades in a day or whatever period. This is a million trades in a week, or however they're measuring it. I don't know. That can't be the right number, but anyway, on the scale though. But then you can see that's the last time we ever touched this bar, and now we can't even touch half of that, and we're getting to a quarter. That's our volume, is a quarter of where we were earlier in the year. Trading has stopped as the markets have gotten higher and higher. Trading has stopped. So what we have here is the market is not climbing because people are buying and buying and buying. The market is climbing because nobody's selling. There's no volume. Every once in a while somebody buys something, but since nobody's selling, they buy it for a higher price than it was before. Right? But nobody's selling. It's like an auction. That's the trick about an auction, is nobody sells. The auctioneer is selling, but there's nobody in the audience selling. And so there's an item, and if you want the item, you have to bid more than the last person who wanted the item. There's nobody sitting on the sidelines going, "Oh, I'll sell it for that price." No, it's the auction house and buyers only, right? And you have low volume. It's not a bazaar. There's not a lot of transactions. There aren't a lot of vendors. There aren't a lot of choices. You either want something and you bid it up, or you don't. So you have two choices. It's to pay more or not participate. Those are your two choices. That is a false choice. That is not the correct way to set the market value for something. It's like in an art auction, right, where somebody bids, what was it, $6.5 million for a banana on a wall, right? So some idiot with no concept of money bids $6.5 million for a banana on a wall. That's nice for him. But if you had 10 bananas on 10 walls in your basement, that you plan to sell for 6.5 million each, you would have a hard time finding 10 people to pay 6.5, even though one guy paid 6.5 million each just a week ago. You can't. That doesn't mean you will be able to find 10 other idiots who pay $6.5 million for your bananas on the wall. Okay, that's what stock is. A lot of these stocks are bananas on walls. They don't really have the value that they show. They show a tremendous value because nobody's selling them. Everybody thinks their stock is going higher. Same trick with Bitcoin, right? Everybody thinks it's going higher, so they're not transacting with it. They're not selling it. They're only waiting for somebody to buy another one from somebody at a higher price. And now into $100,000. And why is that? So what causes that? What causes that is in November. All right, let's see if we can blow this thing up. Concentrate on the S&P. It's like such a professional presentation, isn't it? So in November, Trump gets elected. And what happens? What changed? Well, the theory is, and it's probably a correct theory, the theory is that he is going to further reduce taxes on corporations. It wouldn't help if the taxes on corporations remain where they are, which is less than 10%. The net taxes on corporations is less than 10% of their profit. So it wouldn't help if it remains where they are because they already pay that. So where's the change? How's that going to benefit them? So it has to change. But the problem is that last time Trump took office, corporate taxes, this is 2017. Oh, even further back than that. But anyway, so all right, so Trump takes office here, let's say in January of 2017. Well, you kind of got to see what was baked into it. So Trump is elected here. This is when Trump wins. All right, and the stock starts going up and up and up into 2018 because what? They went from 20, let's say, and even 20,000. And we got up to almost 30,000. It's almost a 50% gain in the market because Trump lowered taxes. So, so now if we need historical facts, we go to our good friend Bodie and we say, last time Trump was elected, how much were corporate tax rates lowered from what to what? Okay, so officially, federal corporate tax rates went from 35 to 21%, representing a 14% reduction. 14%, I don't know where they're getting that number. 14, okay, so it's 14. See, this is a weird thing, and this is the problem with everything in the world has this problem. It's not an AI's fault or whatever, but everything in the world has this problem because when you say a 14% reduction, 35 minus 14 is 21, right? But that's not a 14% reduction. It's 14 divided by 35 is the reduction. And that's a 40% reduction. It's very important. That is a 40% reduction in taxes. So yeah, there's several ways to slice it, but to call it a 14% reduction is to reduce the reduction significantly, because it was a much bigger reduction than that. It was 14 points out of 35. Right? So if I say I'm going to reduce how much blood you have by you know, how much blood do people have, like 11 pints or something like that? I think it's 11. Anyway, so if you have 11 pints of blood and I say I'm going to reduce your blood by 5 points, down to 6 pints of blood, you're going to say, wait a minute, that's like half my blood. And I'm going to be like, no, it's only 5 points. It's not the way math works. Okay, it's not, and certainly it's going to make a big difference in your health. So So thing number one, the change took effect on January 1st, 2018. That is a long time after, one whole year after he took office. And this is already baked into what corporations have for tax breaks. It also matters about the rules and the incentives and so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that change over the time period. So the point being that here's the expectation of the tax cuts. Here is the actuality of the tax cuts. Notice how we step back. And then not only that, though, but COVID hit us and then we were screwed. And that made for really, really choppy times. But then the government said, oh, well, you still have your tax cuts, but here we're going to now give you trillions and trillions of dollars. That was the key to the next bounce. So that's a whole different thing. But for the tax perspective, he promised the tax cuts. He put in the tax cuts, and everybody's like, oh, is that all? Blah, blah, blah. And then we went up a bit, and then kaboom, and everything collapsed, and the world almost died, and whatever. So that's where we are. Now it's going to be now instead of COVID, we're going to have bird flu or whatever, something else that they can ignore until 1 million people die. So anyway, oh, look at this volume. Wow, what the hell? That was, what day is this? This must be election day. Nope, it's July of 2024. We had a big spike in volume. Interesting. Anyway, so as I said, you got to zoom in, zoom out. So here you go. So here's Trump elected. Here's the big move up. And then he actually enacts the tax cuts, and nobody's all that thrilled about it once he enacts them. Things are going downhill. And 2018, college, COVID hit. Yeah, so COVID started in 2018, didn't it? Yeah, right here, in fact. So things kind of went off the rail with COVID, and it's hard to say. It's hard to separate what happened when and what caused what. But the bottom line is things went bad, and then we did a big bailout thing, and then Biden came in, right? Biden came in what, in 2021, right? So here's Biden. Market went up and up and up for Biden. Then it went down again. And then it went way up again on more stimulus and more things like that. So we have the Trump stimulus and we have the Biden stimulus. And and now what? Now Trump is back. He's not going to have the same excuse unless we have another major outbreak of some kind of disease, which they're working on. You know, they got the monkeypox working, they got the bird flu working, they've even got COVID still in the mix. So we have a lot of different ways that we can start dying off and getting some financial aid. But what they don't have is, what are they going to cut the taxes to? Because unless they drop the taxes to, because it was 40% before, and now the taxes are only 20%. So unless they're going to drop the official corporate tax rate to 12%, that would be another 40%. Unless they're going to drop the official corporate tax rate to 12%, that's not going to help. So we're already gaining based on unrealistic expectations of tax cuts. Can they remove any more regulations? The Supreme Court's been removing regulations on corporations for years. So how much easier can we make their lives? And we don't have a good excuse now to give them money. We had several good excuses to give them money. We gave trillions and trillions of dollars to corporations, not to mention the ultra low interest rates we let them borrow money at. How are we going to bring all that back? So, you know, when you look at the reality of, you know, it's you can say, oh, Trump's going to do this, Trump's going to do that. What's he going to do? What possibly more can we do for corporations other than reinstitute slavery? Which by the way, they're doing, because we were just talking about that yesterday with Geo. Like, where are we talking about that? Let me see if I find that. this wonderful company that builds prisons or builds camps, I guess we'll call them. You guys heard about these robots, right? I put that up there and explain it. Like this company made these robots, and the kids love the robots, and now the company's going out of business, and the robots are going to die. And that's going to be the future of many AI projects. What is this? We definitely talked about this yesterday. I'm not signed in. That's why. Shoot. See what happens when you don't pay your membership? Oh, that was it. WP admin. La ti da. So anyway, so this company, this thing is a $750 robot. So it's only rich kids that are crying. But it's a robot pal, and it you know, and kids get very bonded to these things. And it's funny because the company's just basically going out of business, and everybody's like, "Well, sorry, kids, your robot's dead," because there's nobody left to run it. And that's going to be that's a sad fate that's going to await many kids as we have these AI tools and so on and so forth that they're going to get attached to. You know, and you have to think about that when you're a parent. If you're going to get your kid into something, it should be something you better make sure you have to actually check to see if the company has a future before you start buying your kids and investing there. It's their time. See, it's their time and their emotion is invested into this robot, and you can't just sort of switch that off and get them another one and say it's the same thing. They know it's not the same thing. The more lifelike they are, the harder they are to replace. So it's an interesting concept. A whole new problem in the world. And it's funny, I don't remember. I don't remember one of the comedy shows yesterday. They were talking about like how never had that problem with a Furby, and they showed this like totally beat up old Furby that still works. It's like they never stop working; they just constantly work. As long as you have a battery in them, they'll still talk to you. Geo. Here they are. Okay. Whoops. So technically, based on the environment coming up, I mean, you can't make an easier bet than this. Geo is a company that builds detention centers. Trump is creating a demand for massive amounts of detention centers. Now, although we have the most imprisoned population on the planet, we only have 1.9 million prisoners. So only what number is that? 7.5%. Only 7.5% of our population is in prison. Not 7.5. Ugh. Wait a minute. It's 2 divided by 340. 0.5%. So only 0.5% of our population is in prison. It's not many people. And the point is that 2 million prisoners is all the prisoners we have in America. And Trump wants to detain 4 million people almost immediately. In fact, his plan now, which is expanding drastically, as he just said on Sunday, because they said, well, you don't want to separate people from their families. And he's like, yeah, that's right. We're going to lock up their families with them. So in other words, if you have 2 parents and they're illegal aliens and they had 3 kids in America, right? And those kids are 4, 5, 7 years old, whatever. Instead, you're not going to just deport the parents because you don't want to break up the families. That's what they got criticized for last time. So they're going to say they're going to take the entire family into custody and then send them all out of the country, even though the kids were born in America. That's what they call birthright citizenship. Even though the kids were born in America, even though the 14th Amendment says if you're born in America, you're an American citizen, doesn't matter. They're going to round them up with the parents and ship them out of the country. and rip them out of their schools, take them away from their friends, so on and so forth. Massive trauma, massive, massive trauma. I mean, we're going to be we're going to be basically really right behind Germany. It's like, you know, Nazi Germany. It's like the most evil country that ever existed. I mean, maybe you've got like Pol Pot or China under the Mao and the Long March. I mean, we are just going to basically steamroll over people and trample their rights and create horrifying situations. And in charge of that, so because obviously we don't have enough facilities to house these people and detain these people, we turn to this company Geo, who were huge investors. They maxed out their legal corporate contributions to Trump's campaign, and then they put another $500,000 into a Trump super PAC just to make absolutely sure he never forgot them. They have 18,000 unused beds. This is a drop in the bucket, and they've been preparing to scale up quickly, and they expect just these 18,000 beds are going to net the company $400 million a year in revenue. So let's think about that. You know, you got 18, is why there's such an incredible investment. I mean, $18 million, you know, and don't give me any crap about the morality of it. Let's just run the math. $18 million. I'm sorry, no, it's $400 million. I'm sorry, it's a much bigger number. It's $400 million divided by 18,000 beds is $22,200 per bed. So that sounds reasonable, right? I mean, you're gonna house these detainees for $22,000 each, and they are going to and that's just those 18,000 beds are going to pay them $400 million. See, the numbers sound okay when you start. You're like, oh, it's 18,000 prisoners and it's going to be 22,000. Well, I guess you know, $1,500 a month sounds about right for let's say even $2,000 a month sounds about right for you know, for putting someone into a detention center bed and whatever. So, well, that's true, but you look at their current detention centers, and this company Geo, which is, you know, this is what they do for a living. That's all they do is lock people up. They have a lot of lawsuits against, or had a lot of lawsuits. Most of them are settled now, and they've gotten fined $17 million for back pay. Why back pay? Because they force the prisoners to work for $1 an hour. Or is it $1 a day? Sorry, it might be $1 a day. $1 a day. I'm sorry, not $1 an hour. Let's not go crazy paying the prisoners $1 a day. But not only do they make them work for $1 a day, but they also then nickel and dime the prisoners for necessities. So in other words, so in other words, they charge them a lot more than $1 a day for their toothbrush, toothpaste, things like that, for any kind of shaving attire, you know, anything that they need. So any kind of necessities for living in prison, they charge them. They don't provide it. They make them pay. So it's like you have to work and make money, and then you can buy things like shampoo. That's not included in the $22,000 that they charge the government to house the, I guess you can't say prisoners, they're detainees. They're not being charged with anything, they're just detained. So in Washington State, there were 60,000 detainees. Keep this in mind. They have 18,000 unused beds, and in just Washington State, they have 60,000 detainees. So this company is going to make money like gangbusters. The growth of this industry is going to be incredible, and they don't waste money, and that's important. You know, when you invest in a company, you don't want them to waste money, so they don't, because the cells are filthy. They smell like feces and urine because they don't clean them. There's inadequate medical care leading to deaths, but that's okay because there are plenty of detainees coming in to replace them. These aren't prisoners. They're not guilty of anything. They're just dying in these smelly, horrifying facilities with no medical care while they're waiting for some judge to decide on what their disposition shall be. Not for a crime, but for being in America without a license, basically. So Understaffed, of course, because you certainly don't want them, paying unnecessary labor costs. Insufficient training, again, another cost. The company is very, very good at cost control. And that's causing increased violence, but again, not really your problem. What happens inside the facility. One of their facilities was named the deadliest ICE detention center in 2017. That was fantastic. They use occupancy guarantees to lock in profits. In other words, the government promises to provide them with a guaranteed amount of detainees to run their units. They have $3 million in questionable spending at facilities. So what? That's no big deal. We talked about that. They retaliate against whistleblowers. That's good. So you don't have a lot of whistleblowers coming at you. They deny food, water, and bathroom access. Isn't that great to the detainees? They excessively use solitary confinement as a punishment. There are physical and sexual abuse going on in their prisons, and multiple deaths, of course, due to neglect. They already said that. So I mean, come on, if you already said it. So this company is essentially pure evil. And as I said yesterday, it's literally like investing in Auschwitz and saying, what a great business plan this is. It's like they're gonna send in the detainees by train, and all we have to do is give them the very basics that they need. And frankly, when we get too full, we're gonna have an oven and put them in an oven. And that's your business strategy. Oh, and it's like, well, won't the graves be expensive? No, we're just gonna dig one giant hole with some bulldozers and throw the bodies in. And you're like, oh yeah, let's invest in that. So in the same spirit, in the spirit of Auschwitz, if you want to invest in GEO, I set this one up, and you're only paying $5,400 for a $40,000 spread, because we're saying it's not going to go any lower. We're going to sell the $25 puts. Here's what GEO looks like. Oh, because it's EO. Here's what GEO looks like. I mean, look how they shot up because Trump got elected. I mean, it's just amazing because you can see it. And look at their PE is currently 110 times earnings, right? And they just had earnings and they missed. Even at 110 times earnings, they can't manage to get their earnings report in line. But next year, because of Trump, they are going to make 5 times more money just right off the bat, and the growth potential is enormous. As fast as they can build these things, they will make more money. And it's let's see. That's it. Their business plan was to get Trump elected. That was their entire business plan, and it worked. Basically, their business plan has been pulled up because their income, their revenues are $2.4 billion. weren't much different ever, right? So it's $2.4 billion. Their profits maxed out at 167, and now that Trump is back, they're pretty positive. They're positive they're going to be on a growth path. They're going to get more money. They're going to make more profits and more revenues, and they can jump back up to $207 billion. 2023 was 107, and here's 118, and their market cap is $3.9 billion. So they expect to, on $4 billion in revenue, they expect to make $207 million. This is going to turn into a nice little company, frankly. Where were we? Right. So the trade we say is that, I'm sorry, they're at 27.75. So we don't think they're going to go any lower. So we could sell the $25 puts, and we pick up $10,000 selling the puts. We're going to buy 40 of the 2027. And this is a halfway through Trump's presidency play, right? So we don't think anything's going to change going that way. Now, in 2027, maybe a new Congress or something like that. So we may not play them again, but in this particular cycle, they look good. Don't forget they're already at 27. So we're buying the 20-30 bull call spread, and we're selling the $30 short-term calls and give them a chance. But we're only selling a quarter of what we have covered. So we feel pretty good about this trade. and we're netting in for $5,400, and it's a $40,000 spread. We can make it's $32,000 in the money now. It's currently $32,000 in the money. And we have $34,600, 640% upside potential plus potential money coming in from the sale of short-term calls. So from a trade perspective, this thing is phenomenal. You've got catalysts everywhere that should make this thing pop, because you got Trump coming in. He's going to arrest millions and millions of people on day one. There's no way to put them all. So they'll fill their beds. They'll fill all the beds they can make for the next couple of years. And unless somebody does something to stop Trump's program, and who have you heard who's going to stop it? This thing's a home run. I mean, this is what you look for in a stock, right? You look for the catalyst going forward. You look for the base, the macro environment, the legal aspects. Everything is going the way for this company. So if you don't mind making money off the tragic suffering of millions of people, this is one of the most perfect plays I've ever seen. It's just unbelievable how good they do. And look, realistically, we made money on Pfizer and Moderna in COVID, didn't we? We were very happy about that. Now, they seem to be nice that they were curing it, but they were also charging a freaking fortune. Pfizer made $20 billion, something like that. Moderna made 20-something billion dollars in profit. They could have charged less for the vaccine. They didn't have to make that much money. And they talk about, oh, the cost of development, blah, 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 blah. And this is where Mark Cuban is right, because he's got this new cost plus drug program. So he tells you what it costs to make it, and he makes a small markup and says, this is what we're charging. It's just to get our money back on producing the drugs. That is not what Pfizer and Moderna did. That's not what all these drug guys did. They basically marked the thing up to hell because they said, well, everybody's dying and they really need this stuff. So, we're going to recoup our profits, literally in 1 year. I mean, they started working on it, and in 1 year they had recouped their profit. They recouped their profits, and then they made an extra 10 billion, an extra 10 billion. So where's the morality in that? Where's the morality in any of these things, frankly? So it's not like we never invest in bad companies. We invest in Exxon. Exxon was part of this group, in fact, but we chose not to because Exxon's just too darn high. We didn't invest. We didn't not. If we're gonna put money into Geo, then we have no excuse to say anything bad about any other company. Okay, you can't badmouth other companies if you're gonna say I support Geo. It is a purely evil company. You should feel sick to your stomach investing in it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't invest in it, because what's the goal? The goal is to make money, right? But they are. Yeah, I can't not say it. I mean, I'm sorry, they are disgusting. That is an evil company. It shouldn't exist. And woe unto us for sitting by. And I don't mean as investors, I mean as citizens of the United States. Woe unto us for allowing this to happen. Oh, in fact, here you go. 14th Amendment. What does the 14th Amendment say? Oh, that's not the 14th Amendment. No state shall enforce abridged privileges, immunities in the United States, nor shall any state deprive person of life, liberty, property without due process, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the laws. That's not it. Oh, here it is. Well, how do they say that? If that's the 14th Amendment, how do they get this out of it? The 14th Amendment of the United States grants citizenship to all people born or naturalized in the United States, including formerly enslaved people. I need to read this actual amendment. Transcript. What? Oh, you're kidding. It's so long. No wonder. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject jurisdiction are citizens of the United States. Okay. So all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. So in other words, if you're born in that's the key. If you are born in the United States, you are a citizen of the United States. It doesn't repeat it by accident. They're making it very clear. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens within the United States. Nor shall any state deprive a person of life, liberty, or property without due process, or deny any person within jurisdiction equal protection under the law. So Trump is saying he is going to violate this on day one. He says maybe we'll get it amended. They talked about this on Sunday on his whatever show it was on, Face the Nation or whatever. So the gist of it is that it's an amendment to the Constitution. It has to change it. You have to get the approval of 60% of the states have to ratify the change in order to do it, and that seems highly unlikely. In fact, this is also the amendment that creates Congress. So representatives shall be appointed among the states according to their numbers, counting the whole number of people in each state, excluding Indians. Is that still on there? That's terrible. Not taxed. Wait, counting the whole numbers in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. When the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for president and vice president of the United States, executive blah blah blah, members blah blah blah, being 21 years of age, blah 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 blah. That's too much. No person shall be a senator or elected or hold any office under the state without having taken an oath as a member of Congress. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts. Wow, this gets into a lot of stuff, huh? A lot of sections for 14th Amendment. I guess by that time they were having a hard time making amendments without, and so they figured they'd slap on a lot of stuff there. But anyway, so the most important thing here, though, is that here's the problem. If you have a child under the age of 18 and you pull the child, the mother away because she's an illegal, but the child is born in America, that's what they call birthright citizenship, then you're violating the rights of the child. And you can't just take the child and cause a situation where the child is now has to be put under Child Protective Services or deport the child. You certainly can't deport the child from the country. Well, one would think, based on this very, very clear law, that you can't just take a kid and deport their parent and leave them alone with no means to support themselves and whatever, and then just throw them into being a ward of the state or throw them out of the country. They should have rights. Those rights should be protected. There should be due process. So what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen, but what Trump said is going to happen on Sunday is that he's just going to deport the whole family. And that's a little kooky. So that'll be fun. Anyway, big business. That's the key to this. Is there's 640% upside to be made on this tragedy. Now, the other tragedy we talked about was Lockheed Martin. Sorry, but Lockheed Martin is just good old war profiteering. Lockheed Martin is our trade of the year. Again, moral trading is not really a thing, okay? And as liberal as I am, as much of a bleeding heart liberal as I am, even I said Lockheed Martin was the greatest stock for the 21st century. And I said this 20 years ago now. I picked this stock at the beginning of the century, and I said they are the best. Now, why were they the best? Because we're going to keep having wars, because they had begun this F-35 program almost 20 years ago. And they had other programs. They are a key military supplier. They are a key satellite provider. They're a key space provider. And not only that, though, but they're also an energy provider, and they're working very heavily. They're one of the top contenders for building fusion reactors, which are still science fiction-y, In fact, 2025 though, Lockheed Martin said by 2025 they'll have a working fusion reactor. That was their prediction like 6-7 years ago. As they said that was what it was going to take. And by the way, these things are true. It's like when you hear it from certain companies, it's not like bullshit. It's not Elon Musk. Elon Musk has taken our trust of these targets and things and twisted them to his advantage. But in reality, there are many companies like Lockheed Martin and like GE and like Google, because Google said, I think it was 12 years ago, yeah, it's like 12 years ago, Google said that around 12 years later, they would have the first working quantum processor. That was what they started working on 12 years ago. They just rolled it out yesterday. They are miles ahead of the competition. Nobody else started that long ago, and you can't catch up just because they made one. It doesn't work like that. They have put amazing amounts of research and effort and so on and so forth, and they spent unbelievable amounts of money building this thing over time. Not only that though, but they've assembled teams of engineers who have been working together for a decade to do this, and you can't just rebuild that somewhere else. They've been recruiting the top engineers in the world for a decade to build this thing, and they just showed it off yesterday. And now they're saying, okay, so we're about 10 years away from commercial development. So this is like a 20+ year project Google's working on with quantum computing. And IBM, another example, was on, when was that? When was Watson on Jeopardy? It's hard to tell when things happen because of COVID, but I'm going to say 9 years. 2011, wow, 13 years. So this was the first AI. So IBM put Watson on Jeopardy in 2011, and now, well, 2 years ago anyway, so in 2022, we finally had commercial AI, not from IBM, but from, well, we did have it from IBM first, but they didn't, they were trying to roll it out to corporations as Watson Services and things like that. So they were trying for years to get Watson Services rolling, but then all of a sudden OpenAI made some leaps forward in practicality, and they sort of leapfrogged IBM. But that doesn't mean that they're going to maintain that lead, because IBM is still working on deep corporate stuff and much heavier duty AI. It's just not designed for the masses, which is the same thing IBM did with PCs. Originally IBM had no plan for a PC. Apple came out with the PCs. Bill Gates went to IBM and said, do you want to buy my operating system for personal computers? And IBM was like, no, that's bullshit. Nobody wants that. Terrible mistake by IBM. They ceded over the computing power to all the PC industry, but only for a certain amount of time, because now we're right back to mainframes. All this cloud stuff we do, all the internet stuff we do now, it's all mainframe computers. IBM was right. PCs were a fad. The cloud is where it's at. The mainframes on the cloud, the giant supercomputers that run off our dumb terminals, which is what our computers are now. They're effectively just dumb terminals. This is how NVIDIA got so big, because your computer only needs to be a graphics card and enough hardware to connect to the web. That's all a computer really has to be. Almost all of the processing is done somewhere else. So IBM was right, but they were tragically wrong for 20, 30 years in between. There's a pause while PCs held sway, and then they faded back out, and now we're back to the world IBM thought would always be there. But that doesn't mean, as you can tell from IBM's profits, that doesn't mean it was damaging to IBM over the long haul either, because IBM just got bigger and bigger and bigger. In fact, they were our stock of the year in, I I forget, it was like 2017 or something like that. When were they our stock of the year? No, not long ago. Anyway, they were our trade of the year. They went very well. And why did they do very well? Because people were not paying attention. I noticed recently, I think it was 4 years ago, I don't know, whatever. But we did well with IBM. Nobody was paying attention because they just kept developing and developing and developing. And the reality for IBM, although they, as you can see in 2012, they had done well. But, here's where they missed. They missed the PC times back here. I don't know if this thing moves now. They missed PC times back here, but then they got themselves together. They made a ton of money, did very well. Then they were out of fashion for a while again, but they decided to work on AI and build that up. And now they are sneakily making unbelievable amounts of money. And they're only trading at 21 times earnings. They are pulling in $65 billion. They're making $10 billion. These are nice numbers. It's not sexy because it's not like Apple kind of money. It's not like Microsoft kind of money, but this is a good functioning company that's growing and doing well. And, really, we just want companies that do well and perform well. We don't need companies that go to the moon, not the strategies that we employ. We just need the company to be making money and not go down. As long as it doesn't go down, we're going to be happy traders doing what we do. Tony, back to Lockheed Martin. As much as people malign the F-35s because they are the most sophisticated fighter jets ever made. I think we were talking about fusion. So anyway, Lockheed Martin has got this 20-year project, 30-year projects of fusion. That's a bonus. You have to look at that as a bonus because it'll happen or it won't. They may be first, they may not be first, they may commercialize it well, they may not, whatever. But the reality is, as far as what they make long and medium range missiles like Patriot missiles that cost $1 million each. So every time you see the thing that says, oh, Iran launched 200 missiles in Israel, it's like, well, there's $200 million for Lockheed Martin. They had them, they used them, and now they got to buy more. So when you see these missiles going flying back and forth, Lockheed Martin's making money. They don't necessarily sell to Iran, but they sell somebody sold missiles to Iran, and they need missiles now to replace the missiles they sold to Iran. It's like that. It's not like every country has their own Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is, it's somewhere. Missiles are coming out of some stockpile and going to Iran, and then that country then replaces their missiles with Lockheed Martin missiles and so on and so forth. So the F-35 fighter is the best in the business when they work, but they do generally work. That's the thing. They get a bad rap because just like a 747, just like a 737 MAX, if they don't work, somebody dies. So it's big, if they don't work, someone dies, and it's a big deal. But not enough people die not enough people die versus how deadly these things are, that there aren't armies and air forces all over the world who want these things. And frankly, at this point, you can't be competitive without them. Your air force is going to lose if you don't have planes like this. And so they will make money and more money and more money with these things. And again, they've got all the space development, the satellites, and so on and so forth. It's a huge company. And so what do we see as catalysts? Trump has a peace through strength strategy. He's got the Space Force. He wants the NATO members to spend more money. And when you say, I want NATO members to spend more money, where are they going to spend the money with? They got to spend the money. You don't want them just to spend money. It's an unspoken thing. It's like, yeah, spend more money. Come over to the air show and see which one. See what planes of ours you're going to buy with this money. It's an arm twisting thing. He already flipped on these guys. He came in talking about like how the program is expensive. Then you know, and again, it goes back to, it's like, it's expensive, but if you want to start another one from scratch, because this one had decades of development, you want to start another program like this from scratch, you are going to fall 10 years behind China and 10, you know, and behind Russia too. You can't do that. You can't just say, oh, these are no good. You have to fix what you got and roll them out. And that's what they did. So we're at that point. We're at the same point Boeing is with the 737 MAX. It's like the bugs are basically fixed, and now they just got to start producing these things. And of course, the world, as you can see, is basically getting worse and worse as far as in a war stance. The European nations have to have these things. They have to defend against Russia. It's critical that they can defend their airspaces. Otherwise, Russia can just, you know, go wherever they want and do whatever they want. And you got people coming in like Rubio, Waltz, who are big supporters of Lockheed Martin. They of course have contributed amazing amounts of money to Trump's campaigns. And it says here, with half of the 22 analysts calling it a buy or a strong buy, Bernstein said it's the most likely, among the most likely beneficiaries of Trump's policies. So yeah, and we just had a pullback from 600. It got rejected at 600. It fell all the way back to 5, which is a 20% reduction. But they consolidated up at 300. Okay, so if you look at the run from 3 to 600, then the 5% rule says, what's that pullback going to be? So from 3 to 600 is 300 points. It's a 100% run, and therefore a 20% pullback is a strong retrace. I'm sorry, it's not 20%. It's strong. I'm sorry, 20% pullback, because it's 300 to 600 is divided by 5. It's 300 divided by 5 is going to be 60s. So a 60-point pullback from 600, 540 would be a weak retrace. Below 540 is you're going to get all the way down to 480 is going to be a strong retrace. You can see that line over here. All right, so that's a strong retrace. And also it's the, what is this thing, pink? It's the 20, well, it's the 20-month moving average. So basically it's like the 200-day moving average. So you're going to get a lot of support here at what's going to be the strong retrace. And it is most likely going to just keep moving along this way. And value-wise, you can see that. You can see that from what they're making in the dollars and so on and so forth. So for this, for the long-term portfolio, we sold the not long-term, but 2026 next year, the $500 puts, because we think $500 is basically going to hold. We bought an unbalanced 15 long and 13 short of the 500-600 spread. Not an aggressive spread, but that's because we plan to work it into a larger spread over time, and it also gives us room to sell the March 525 calls. So the 525s are a bit out of the money, but we have 2 open here, and we don't think we're going to get in too much trouble on these. We'll roll them along, and we can roll them along over time. And if we can pick up this extra 10,000 bucks, that's going to be a lot of freaking money. So we're going to net in for $42,000. It's a $150,000 spread, has 107,250% upside, plus also another $60,000 we can make, which is a lot of money. 60,000 is another 150% of this. We can make another 150% selling short-term calls. Also, the plan is if it goes higher, we will roll these short calls along and we'll end up making our 250%. If it goes lower, we will roll the 500s to the 450s, and we will roll the 600s up to the 650s, and we'll widen the spread, and we'll sell more calls, and so on and so forth. So this is a lot of ways we can make money on this, and so there's a ton of ways we can make money on it, and we don't think it's going to fail because there's just too many positive catalysts coming this thing's way. So we like Lockheed Martin for that reason. Oh, didn't mean to do that. See if we have any questions. Oh, maybe. Guess who invented the lithium battery? Whittingham while working for the evil Exxon. Okay, so Exxon invented the lithium batteries. Yeah, I mean, these companies, they do R&D. You can not like them. I mean, look, the bottom line for Exxon is they knew from basically day one that their fuel was causing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and that it was going to cause global warming. They knew this like in 1900. Scientists were already saying this might not be a good idea. They buried it. They brought up all the research. They did everything they could to stop people from realizing that this fuel was damaging the world, and now the world is totally screwed. So, are they bad people, or are they just capitalists? Does that make them evil? They didn't actually go out and kill the world. Well, maybe they did, kind of. What didn't they actually do? Let's see. They created a system that destroyed the atmosphere. It led to global warming. As they realized that more clearly, they buried the scientific research. They bought up congressmen and stopped anybody from legislating it. They created fake research and fake PR and so on and so forth to make sure they could keep doing it, knowing that there was a point of no return and knowing that they were pushing us towards it, and then the earth was destroyed. Does that make them evil? I don't know. I guess people seem to argue no. So what are you going to do, right? We're totally screwed, so it doesn't really matter. No sense in pointing the finger. And so let's see what happened. So last week, so we did this webinar last week. So let me see where Wednesday was. We did the trade of the year last week. I'm confused. So did we not do? Because I know the title of this webinar is the trade of the year. So I had to figure out why. All right. Well, just to cover the bases, okay? I don't want to get too into this. We picked Synchrony Financial for the trade of the year, but let's talk about how we got there. I mean, I did this trade in the morning, so we must have talked about this at last week's webinar. Our finalists were the aforementioned Exxon was a finalist. Lockheed Martin was a finalist, so we just covered them. We have this trade on Exxon from last Wednesday. And for the Exxon trade, what do? We put it in the money talk portfolio. So in the money talk portfolio, we sold 5 Exxon $110 puts, right? So we think $110 is going to hold on Exxon. We collect $5,200 for that. We bought 10 Exxon 110, 130 spread. So 110, see this range? We bought the bottom of the range and we sold the top of the range. The top is really up here. So we bought the 110, 130 calls. And we think that by 2027, which is 2 whole years from now, by 2027, we will get to that 130, which is only a little bit above where it was already. So when we're at the top of the channel, we will be in a $20,000 spread. 10 times $20 is a $20,000 spread, and we paid $37.50 net for it. So, and also another nice thing is at $750, right? We're well, it was different. I guess it changed since this day, but it was we were $7,850 in the market. We're now $7,500 in the market. We were $7,850 in the money to start, even though we only spent $37.50. That's the cool thing about options. If you sell premium when you purchase options, if you don't buy premium but you sell it, you actually get a huge advantage, even at the outset, where we only spend net $37.50 for a spread that's double that in the money. So that's just fantastic. And we have a 433% upside potential on this thing. What's our risk? Our risk is owning 500 shares of Exxon. Oh, I get it. I hadn't officially announced it. That's why, because as of Wednesday morning, I had not. Oh no, here it is. I said it right here. I don't know what the hell. All right. Anyway, So as of Wednesday morning, I hadn't been on the Money Talk show, but I did announce our trade of the year, Synchrony Financial. And it's the same thing. This is one of the reasons they got picked is because they don't have the baggage. Lockheed Martin is too expensive to pick for trade of the year. Lockheed Martin, as we just discussed for the other trade, Lockheed Martin is the short puts are what kills it, because the Money Talk portfolio can't handle this kind of short put position. So it knocked it out, even though trend wise and so on and so forth, it should be. And the Exxon trade we just discussed, wherever that went, also 110 puts. It's a little tricky for trade of the year to commit to. Also, Exxon is a little evil, and I don't really like to pick something like that for my trade of the year. Lockheed Martin's a little bit evil too. Also, the reason Geo literally would have been the trade of the year. If you didn't care about the morals at all, it could be the trade of the year. But I'm not associating my name and calling that my trade of the year. It's just too many negative connotations. And years from now, people look at my trade of the year, but they don't look at like why it picked or what I said about it otherwise. So no, thank you. That's why it's not the trade of the year, which is, you know, a terrible reason something shouldn't be the trade of the year just because they are an evil company, but that's the way it is. So that brings us to Synchrony Financial, which is also evil, just not that evil. They prey on people who have bad credit, and since because of COVID and the bad economy, a lot of people have bad credit, and they prey on those people and give them credit cards and credit lines with outrageous rates. And they target them, and they use AI to find the best of the worst. So in other words, lots and lots of people have bad credit, but for dumb reasons, like their business turned down during COVID, and they are they've rebuilt already. So in other words, you know, people could have lost their jobs in COVID, or could have their company could have gone downhill or whatever, because, you know, if you're a restaurant owner, right, and your restaurant was closed for 2 years and you go out of business, your credit is destroyed, you're destroyed. So now that same restaurant owner has a new restaurant, or maybe he has a job as a chef making $100,000 a year, something like that. He shouldn't have bad credit, but he does, because he had a severe misfortune, even though that misfortune was shared by the entire country. So the AI flags this guy and says, hey, here's a good guy with bad credit, and they go after those guys. It's very effective, and there's millions and millions of these people, so they have incredible room for growth as long as other credit card companies don't start grabbing up these people. And so far, they've had no interest in doing it because they rely on a much more traditional model of measurement. But Synchrony Financial is very progressive about this stuff. They also push very hard through the retail stores programs, like if you like Lovesac, for example. If you buy a $7,000 couch at Lovesac, they shove one of these cards at you and say, here, put it on the card, you'll pay no interest for a year, blah, blah, blah. But when you do start paying interest, the interest is like 35%. And if you miss a payment, it's 40% or whatever. So they're predatory lenders, essentially. And given companies that will prosper under Trump next year, this is the least evil of the picks. Of the 4 companies that we looked at that were going to do really, really well in the next year, this one was the least odious, but they're still awful. And again, it's, you know, I mean, what is our responsibility? That's a hard thing. Is as traders, it's like, you know, we're not running a morality-based trading site, but, you know, but should we be? That's the ethics of it. And I've had this discussion with some of my AIs. I had my AIs have philosophical discussions with me about it. And you have a responsibility to the investors, you guys, right? You want to know what the best possible picks are and how you're going to make money next year. And there's the responsibility to humanity to say these companies shouldn't even exist, but they do. So what is our moral responsibility in this situation? So in this case, trade of the year. So here we're playing and saying, look, they're gonna just keep growing, and things are gonna keep going. There's gonna be less regulations on their industry, not more. You know, their biggest thing holding them back is Elizabeth Warren, and she's gonna be muzzled and tied up and thrown in the back of a car somewhere. If nobody's gonna fight and you know what it is, to regulate this kind of business, you have to be able to understand all the loopholes they take advantage of. They've got teams of lawyers and really smart guys and so on and so forth, and they're into every nook and cranny of the act, and they're lobbying for changes, and they're cherry picking court cases so that they win certain cases in certain courts that causes an entire section of the country to be to defer to this court case at some federal court appeal. So, you know, in other words, it's when you want to beat a law, even if the law goes against you, you want to find one judge at a high level federal court that's going to make one decision for you, and that one decision will then be referred to by all the lower courts in an entire district, and you've effectively now cut off that entire district from suing you, because you've set a precedent in one court that makes all the other judges have to look at that precedent and say, well, this has been decided and we can't go against this court, even though, you know, on the surface, this is not something that should even be a decision that was made. It happens all the time. So, and again, Synchrony Financial makes incredible use of data collection and analytics and so on and so forth, and they find every little thing. And unless you have somebody as smart as Elizabeth Warren on your side, who is able to figure out what you're doing and put a stop to it and take it to other courts and bring cases up and get behind legislation that closes the loopholes, unless you have someone that smart working against you, you're going to steamroll this process. And that's what these guys do, even with Elizabeth Warren. Now Elizabeth Warren is relegated to just like being a gadfly who has zero power. And this is not going to, you know, this is going to be a winner for these guys. So, and again, we can expect the legislation to get worse and worse and worse. Ever since Citizens United, I mean, things have gotten terrible for consumers. They're going to get way more terrible over the next few years. Because don't forget, you know, Trump already threw off the entire legal system with his judicial appointments. He's now going to get to appoint thousands of more judges, you know, and just tilt the courts to a level that's just going to be incredible. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about it, but it'll be great because, you know, and from an investing standpoint, there will be carve-outs made for so many different companies that's going to change their business model and make it possible for them to make so much more money. So this case was we sold the 65 puts, bought the 50-70 spread, 67.50 on a $30,000 spread. It's almost all in the money. They're at 67 bucks. We're taking the $70 calls. We got 2 years to make it to 70. Which is not even a 5% gain from there. To do that, we have a 344% upside, and our worst case scenario is owning 1,000 shares of Synchrony. And in this case, because again, it's not such a big portfolio, we would want to use stops in this case if they do go down, but we're not too worried about that. And since we made the pick, SYF, which has only been a week, they have skyrocketed. So when did we make this? The 4th. So here they are on the 4th. We picked a very good time to get in, and they're already up here. Oh, I wouldn't say skyrocketed, but it looks good anyway. What was that other chart? Was that weeks? Oh, that was weeks. Yeah. So yeah, we came in on November 4th. Oh, no, not November 4th, dummy. It's December 4th. That makes more sense. I'm like, wow. But you know what? If we had done the trade here, it would have shown up on the same screen for the same reasons. Unfortunately, we just didn't get in. The trade of the year wasn't done until Thanksgiving. So here we are, and they're popping up, and all we're saying in this trade is we don't think they're going to go below $65, and we think they're going to hit 70. That's all we're looking for, and we make 344%. So why would we take a risk? And that's the thing about the trade of the year. The trade of the year is all about certainty. So why would we take a risk trying to make 300% or trying to make 500% when we can be almost certain that this one's going to make 300%? All right, we have 90% certainty this is going to work. Now, the being 90% certain doesn't always work, because we picked Valet, was our trade of the year last year, and it's still languishing way down here. We still like them, but they're going to take longer than we thought to work out their issues. They have a lot of issues, and it's overhanging lawsuits and so on and so forth. So and notice beat, but they settled the lawsuit, and people are trying to figure out the price it in and so on and so forth. It's going to take a couple of more beats, and then they'll start taking off again, because people have to trust that they're done with their damages and it's baked into the pie and so on and so forth. But they're trading at 5 times earnings, and they have set aside so much money for damages already that it's going to work out. Just a question of when. But of course, we said Paramount would work out, and it did break up, and it's moving forward. We have a 1250 target. It's inching along there. And who else just got a big thing? Oh, freaking Boots. WBA is another one. These are not trade of the year, so they're just stocks that we believed in. So WBA just had a thing, because they're probably going to get bought out by a private company now. Because again, I know they're too cheap. I know they're a bargain, but public companies are terrified to do M&A like this right now, because first of all, there's a huge regulatory hurdles that they keep getting held up. Like Albertsons, Kroger Albertsons just got held up. So it's hard for, like, CVS can't take over Walgreens. It would never be allowed. Probably Walmart couldn't do it. It wouldn't be allowed, so on and so forth. Not that I think Walmart would want to. It wouldn't make sense for them. And now now Biden is trying to get the Biden administration is trying to get the healthcare providers to get out of the drug dispensary business. They don't want to see those guys getting together. But that's all going to change in a month. So, it's basically about staying nimble, staying alert, paying attention to what's happening, that kind of thing. But the bottom line for Walgreens, and this is where it's silly, okay? I mean, you look at this number, 6.69 is their forward PE. And it's not like their current PE is really high either. Walgreens for years. Okay. Walgreens for years. They bought, first of all, they bought Rite Aid. It was a horrifying mistake. Then COVID hit. Obviously massively destructive. They were closed. I mean, people went, but you're not milling about the pharmacy. You know what it was like. You were there. So it's not like, things were not good for years, and they're trying to turn everything around, but it's not going well, and it's not going quickly. But the bottom line is, they did 120 billion, 120 billion, 132, 132. It's during COVID. 139, 149, 151. This is growth. Profits used to be $4 billion. Then it went down. COVID, they were closed. Then it went back up, but then it went way down in 2023. They lost $3 billion because they had to take losses from all those bad decisions they made, buying Rite Aid and so on and so forth, and they were closing down stores that weren't profitable and so on and so forth. So even though they're up to 149 billion, Their profits are down to 1.3 basically billion dollars in profit, but the whole thing is $9 billion. So when you divide 9 billion, $9 billion divided by 13, it's 7. Oh, right there, see? Their PE ratio is 7. That's stupidly low. They do have debt, though. This is the thing. See the net debt? So the net debt's about 7.5 billion, but that's already baked in. They got a huge working capital problem. That's scary. Okay, but they do have 3 billion in cash and they're making money, so they should be able to work out of this issue. But it's, you know, because again, it's write-downs and all kinds of stuff that they're doing, but they're certainly worth more than $9 billion with $150 billion in sales. You know who has $150 billion in sales? Target. Here's Target. They got 100 billion in sales. They make $4 billion and they're worth 61 billion. You think it's not easy to get to $100 billion in sales. I'd say Best Buy is probably in that league. Nope, 50 billion in sales. So Best Buy's got 50 billion in sales. They make the same exact amount of money as Walgreens makes, the exact same amount of money as Walgreens makes. Keep that in mind. And they are worth $18 billion. Double. So Walgreens is already making twice, I'm sorry, Walgreens already has 4 times the sales of Best Buy, and they're making the same amount of money. And so the question with Walgreens is you have to say, well, okay, can they get back to this margin? That's what the question is. It's a difference of margin. This is 1%. They're only making 1%. Walmart makes 3%. So can they get back to Walmart's level? And the problem is, and this gets alleviated by Trump, the problem is that the government has been cracking down on prescription drug prices. Most famously, this the cost of insulin and things like that has been put on alerts. So a lot of the profit that was coming from prescription medication has gone out the window, and then Walgreens had this very not brilliant idea of making their stores much bigger and turning them into like you know, like 7-Eleven type grocery stores basically. But they didn't do what they see. The weird thing about Walgreens is they didn't do what they did in England. In England, because that's what Boots is, the Walgreens Boots Alliance. Boots in England is mostly a beauty store, like an Ulta Beauty kind of place. That's the thrust of it. They have a pharmacy counter, they have some candy, they have some magazines, but the main portion of the store is personal beauty care and things like that. Not the weird wacky crap that they have at the Walgreens here. I don't even understand what they're trying to go for. They sell toys and games, and they sell, I mean, just schlock that sits on the shelves and does nothing. And yeah, they have some beauty stuff, but it's not the same thing because the Boots in England, well, let's see if we can look at one. Boots Pharmacy UK. See, well, first of all, they have people. But you know, see, it's not, it's food and drink a little bit, but it's a lot of oh, no, let's see if we can see that. Is that a big picture? No. Oh well. Anyway, they're nice and they're shiny and bright, and it's a whole different experience when you go there. Here, pharmacy, health, beauty. There's, I mean, I guess that's probably really the point, is that if you think about what they're saying to people, that's what they want you to think about, is pharmacy, beauty. And so instead of doing that in the US, pharmacy, outside pharmacy, beauty, very clear. And they're in every airport. You know, it's a different concept. Like, you would never think Walgreens should be in an airport. Boots is in like every airport and every train station in Europe has Boots, because it's stuff that you would buy every single day, shaving stuff and equipment. And it's not like Walgreens doesn't have it, but they act more like a 7-Eleven. And it's a very different vibe. And I don't know why, rather than making the American stores more like Boots, they seem to want to be making the Boots more like the American stores, which makes no sense to me. Walgreens sales floor. You know, it's like this. It's like entire rows of candy and things that are really bad for you too, like a lot of really bad food. Look at this, more candy. Like, I can't, I mean, it's supposed to be a place that makes you healthy. And they try to stuff you with candy, so you hopefully come back and buy their drugs to get better. You know, so yeah, they got lots of shampoo. Look at these old sodas and shit. It's just insane. I mean, how can you possibly make oh, that's Kroger Pharmacy, that's not even Walgreens. How can you possibly make a lot of money selling sodas and things like that? And they've got the refrigerators now, and they're trying to sell you frozen food. It's like, it's all weird stuff. And I mean, I guess their logic is we want to be open 24 hours, so we should be like a 7-Eleven, but I don't think that's good logic at all. Anyway, so the bottom line is a private company, and it makes sense because at this point, there's too much work to be done still for this to be done by for Walgreens to turn themselves around and invest what needs to be invested and spend another $2 billion to to have another loss for the year of billions of dollars. They just can't. They don't have the stomach for it. The board doesn't have a stomach for it. So, what you have to do is let the private investor buy it out, take it private, do your fix up, and then they can roll it back out as a public company once they fixed it. Because it's not for lack of the ability to make money, because they've got the revenues keep coming in, but they're not making money on it. That's what's crazy. Oh, you didn't even notice that one. 2024 minus $8 billion. This was what they invested already to turn things around. They're starting to turn things around, but not fast enough. They got to get back to 2 billion, 4 billion. On 150, they should be making $3 billion, $4 billion. If they were, everything would be rosy. But look, they're not making it this year. Obviously, first year out of turnaround. But why this year is it so low? Why can't they get in 2026? Why don't they have better projections than that? That's scary. So, it's a long turnaround. So the trick is, if I take this private and I buy them for $9 billion or $10 billion, basically it's probably going to be $10 billion, somebody's going to buy them. So if I buy them for $10 billion, which is going to be $11 a share, basically, maybe 12 if they're lucky, then I invest another couple of billion. So I'm buying them for 12. I spend 2 billion more. Instead of these being profit, I'm going to lose money again. And I take 2 billion more, and then I get into a point where they should be making, they should be dropping 3% to the bottom line, like Walmart does, right? Then I'm making 4 billion a year. 3% is $4 billion. Then I take it public again and get myself, even if I got a 10 times PE on $4 billion, it's 40 billion freaking dollars. So I pay 12 for the company, put 2 billion into it, and then 2 years later we take it public for $40 billion after spending $14 billion. That's the formula. So of course somebody wants to buy them and take them private because the public market won't accept what needs to be done. And that's what you do. And frankly, I mean, they may have pitched this to Walgreens ages ago, and the board and they've been trying to get the shareholders so fed up that they're willing to do this. So they're saying, "Oh, thank God someone wants to buy it for $12." Whereas if they tried to do this back here, nobody ever would have approved it. All the investors would have been like, "Screw you, we're not giving this thing up to 16." Now it's like 12. Thank you. We thought we were going bankrupt. It's all a gigantic scam, so get over it. So terrible. So what else happened here? See if I got anything else unsaid. No. Okay. So lots of evil things to invest in. We're not going to run out of those. And as the policies change and the new Trump administration comes in, we'll have plenty of things to go for here. And today, well, before I say anything, how are the markets holding up before I start imagining? Futures, indexes, hours. Yeah. All right. So the Nasdaq's on a huge tail. Look at the Nasdaq today. Boom. The S&P also boom. The Dow not interested. And the Russell is doing fine. That's not bad for the Russell. The Nikkei had a nice day. Oil's back over 70. I mean, everything's just going up and up. It doesn't, because again, it's a lack of sellers. It's just, it doesn't matter. The buyers are there. People are coming in. Fresh money is made every day, and it has to go somewhere. So it's going to the market. How's the dollar doing? Is the dollar holding up? Yeah, the dollar's fine. It's not because the dollar's getting weaker. People are just putting their dollars into the market, and we're going up and up there. Oh, look what happened here though. The notes. Oh yeah, I forgot we were supposed to pay attention to that 10-year note auction. Apparently it didn't go well. So bonds fell off a cliff at the note auction. So I'm guessing that was a disaster. Whoops. We just had a 10-year note auction at 1 p.m. this afternoon, December 11, 2024. I see bonds dropping, so I assume it went poorly. Please get the deets. Like to make sure he's keeping up with the slang. Oh, interesting. Bid to cover 270, solid. See, he has no problem telling me I'm wrong. The bid to cover indicates robust demand showing strong buyer interest despite the recent market volatility. Bonds dropping after a strong auction would be due to other market factors. Okay. So why are the bonds dropping? This is crazy. We sell $42 billion worth of debt today. We've also got other, the auctions all week. And it's like it's nothing. And that's completely crazy. Deficit overhang. The bond market's facing pressure due to refunding needs and growing supply of treasuries. Market expectations for rate cuts. The bond market is pricing in a high probability of a rate cut in December. If the economic data or Fed statement suggested a delay in rate cuts, it could lead to bond selling. Political uncertainty. Wait. Those sound like generalities. Please do a thorough search for up to the minute specifics. Too soon, huh? The search results only contain general commentary, blah, 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 widening spread, long-term deficit, historical content. That is weird that we had that kind of note auction. And 10-year note auction. So it went off at a lower price. The figures displayed in the spread. One day. This is one day. It's 4.25. It went up 8, but that's not much. That's only 0.2%. December 11th, 4.235. So that's weird. Then why are these tanking? That just makes no sense. Oh, maybe it's no. I mean that happened. It's very clearly that's what happened. After the auction, they went into a tailspin. I mean, it's only 20 basis points. It's not like a huge amount, but it's still like it's an indication something is wrong somewhere. I don't know what's going on. We'll have to find out and dig into that. Anyway, so yeah, sometimes you have to wait for your data to come in and figure out what's going on, because that's a little weird. And we'll have to keep our eye on that stuff and see what's going on. Anyway, so you got the really low volume, and it creates, and everybody thinks that all these companies are going to make great money under Trump, and the rules are going to change, and it's going to be a paradise for all the corporate gangsters to make double the money they used to make, and so on and so forth. And you know, again, with our choices, some of it's probably going to be true, but maybe not to the extent that people think it will. And there could be a lot of disappointment when the new earnings come through, especially the new guidance. So when you get into January, people are under pressure to do yearly guidance and so on and so forth. If the guidance is disappointing in the January earnings, as Trump is being sworn in, which will happen at the same time, earnings season starts basically when Trump is getting sworn in on the 20th of January, when the banks start reporting. And if they aren't all rosy and excited about what's going to happen, and even if they are, then you see Trump trying to initiate policies if he's getting any pushback and things aren't just going through the way he wants it. All kinds of stuff is going to happen. So that's what we're going to have to keep track of going into the new year. We're going to have to keep our eyes open, keep a good sharp look on policies, figure out what Congress is going to look like in relation to the president and his changes, who's going to get actually put in charge of these departments, and whether they're going to be focusing on changing the rules, changing the laws, or whether they're just going to be looking to dismantle the government, which is what a lot of these guys want to do also. And again, if you dismantle the government, you have repercussions, and if you have the repercussions, you got to sit back and watch what's happening. But meanwhile, you don't have any big reason to sell. You know, and that's what I keep finding when we do our portfolio reviews. We don't have any reason to sell particularly, but we don't want to really buy either. So we're in the same position as all these investors, right? We just went over the $700 a month portfolio yesterday. And the $700 a month portfolio, so for 28 months, we put in $700 a month, and we now have $38,000, which is a 95.3% profit in 2 years. So every month we put in $700 a month. 28 times 700 is 28 months times 700 is $19,600. So we put in $19,600. So there it is. We put in $19,600, and now we have $38,287. So that's our profit. We're up 18,000 bucks, 95%. And the interesting thing though is with compounding rates and so on and so forth, if we keep up this pace starting now, and you can join in by starting with 38,000 now, add 700 a month, which is 8,400 a year to the portfolio, and in 8 years we will have $1.09 million. That's pretty freaking good from 38,000 to start. So you haven't missed that much if you've missed the first 28 months of this portfolio. You can still join in and catch up. And we went through the portfolio. These are the changes we made are in blue. The amount of money we're going to make on each position is in green, is the upside position that we're expected to make. See, 1,400 there, 250 there, 2,000 there. This one's a hedge, so we have a hedge in there as well. 1,200 bucks there, which is 34%. Walgreens. I just talked about how frustrating Walgreens. It was at 887. What's our spread on Walgreens? So let's see what happens. There it is. So Walgreens, we have the 750 calls, and we sold the 1250 calls. Our target was 1250. We're fine because at 1050, which is I think where it is right now. So 1050, we're going to have $3 here. Well, actually, we're not fine. We may have to pull the rug on this thing because if it's going to get bought out at $11, then we're only going to have $350 net, and we're at $350. So that's no good. It's no good for us if they get bought out there. We're still going to be behind on this position. But this one will go worthless. That's good news. So we'll collect this 3,000, and we won't pay this 1,800, and that means that we'll get back from this. Only started out at 1,750 basically. So it started out at 1,750, and we're going to pull out 3. Well, so there you go. We are going to make some money. We could double our money because we'll collect whatever this is worth, and let's say it's worth 350. We'll collect 3,500 bucks, and this will go worthless because it won't be over 12. And that's the end of it. That's our position. So that's in our favor. This is all actually a benefit for us. And by the way, this is only net 17, not even 17. This is net 15 here. So if we end up with 3, we made 1,500 bucks. 1,500 bucks is 5%. That's another 5% on the portfolio from that one little thing. So very nice. That's a good turn of events in a couple of days from this portfolio. What else was I talking about? Oh, I was up to WBA. And what was my comment here? Another frustrating choice it's not going so far. We are giving them one more earnings mid-January to see if they're getting back on track or not. So apparently, we'll just wait and see what happens. And like I said, though, it's a no-brainer for the guy buying it because he can easily buy it now for $12 billion, put a few $1 billion into it, and then go public for $40 billion later. So it's a nice way to turn, let's say turn $15 billion into $40 billion in 3 years. That's a good way to take your money. Stellantis is working through their problems. BXMT is Blackstone Mortgage also should benefit from lowering rates. SoFi is very much like SYF. So to me, it's like It's following the same kind of roadmap, except SoFi, SoFi targeted student loan borrowers. That's what SoFi's target for loaning with student loans. That was what they specialized in. So they weren't quite as evil, not quite as evil as Synchrony, but they were mostly like going after the student market because they said, well, they're being treated like they're all high risk, but they're not high risk. We think that they're going to do well, and they did their own target customer targeting to get a good base that defaulted much less than people thought they would, therefore a winner. Also, the rates came down, so good for them. Trox is a good one. I mean, these are all good. They're all good. They wouldn't be here if they weren't good trades, but they're not super duper, as a group, we have $16,000 of upside, right? The whole portfolio is 38. So we have almost 50% upside potential, but we need to make 50% next year, not over 2 years. And these spreads are traded out over next year and the year after that. So we are going to have to add some more trades and pick new ones. At the moment, we just want to get through the holidays, get through New Year's. And by the way, in your portfolios, that's why we did a lot of covering also. Because by the way, the most likely time that we're going to have a catastrophic terrorist attack is obviously Christmas and New Year, and especially New Year's, because a year in advance that a lot of people are going to be gathered in a certain place at an exact time. And we've been fortunate for many, many years not to have anything serious happen on a New Year's, but this is, you realize the markets are closed, everything is slow, and if one thing blows up anywhere in the world, it'll be a catastrophic hit to your portfolio. It's one of the most dangerous times of the year to be invested. And so we're always cautious into the holidays on the incredibly off chance that something bad could happen, because you can't protect against it. There's a limit to how much you can protect against. As we learned from 9/11, when the market was shut for 3 days after it happened, and everybody just had to deal with the fact that the market was 20-30% lower when it reopened. If you aren't hedged into an event like that, and obviously you can't always be ready for that, but from what's the most likely time of a terrorist attack? It's they have to plan it and coordinate it, and so what can you plan and coordinate? Well, you can plan and coordinate New Year's Eve, because it happens every freaking year at the same 50 major spots in the world where massive amounts of people gather. I'm not going to I'm not going to get into where they are, and and they show them on TV. It's a freaking and again, that's the other thing about a terrorist attack. What do you want? You want the eyes of the world to be watching. So we've been extremely fortunate that nothing has actually happened. You got to tip your hat to all the security and the things that we do at the times, but it's a dangerous time of year, and I never like to be too heavily bullish going into a holiday on the off chance. And I know that's a sad way to have to behave, but it's something I always worry about, that I don't like to talk about. I certainly don't like to write about it or anything like that, because I wouldn't want to give anyone an idea, frankly. But it's always a concern of mine when you come into something like that to say, is it really a good idea that you're telling everyone, you're basically broadcasting. Look at the Times Square in New York. It's like you're setting it up and saying, in this tiny little space, we're going to put 1 million people standing shoulder to shoulder, where in a situation where you could somebody could have put a bomb there 6 months ago and we wouldn't know it. How are you going to check everything, everywhere, every possible interaction that occurred, so on and so forth. And anyway, it's not good. So it's a vulnerable time. So you want to be careful about that. And also the whole Trump thing is like you may as well drop a bomb on a certain percentage of the stocks that are going to be hit the negatively by Trump coming in, and ones that are going to be hit positively by Trump coming in. And so we picked up a few that are positive ahead of it, and that's our upside hedge. It's like, well, if Trump comes in and does what we think he's going to do, then this is going to happen and these stocks are going to do fantastic. If not, I don't think Exxon's going to do badly. I don't think Geo's going to do badly. I don't think Lockheed Martin's going to do badly. They just might not do as well if Trump can't get his agenda pushed through. But if he pushes it through, they should skyrocket. And that's what you got to look at here too. We're looking at stocks and we're saying, is this one going to do well under a Trump administration? Will this do well under Trump administration? And next week, we're going to go over all of our portfolios. All right, so the next week will be a very exhausting, a very exhausting webinar. Daniel says, once lawsuits in the UK are settled, would then be a good time to buy? I think we got to run down the entire list of all the suits that they're in and whatever, but I honestly think it's already a good time to buy. It's not like, you know, the lawsuits are known. It was like the tobacco industry. It's like, when do you go back to, when do you get into the tobacco industry after those lawsuits? You know, it's like, okay, yes, we know cigarettes kill people. The question is, how much do you have to pay for killing all the people, and how much money do you make by killing all the people? And then you have to do the math and figure out, it's like, well, we're going to keep killing people, but it's now that they know they don't have an excuse to sue us, because we're going to tell them on the package, this is going to kill you, have fun. And that's what we've settled into. Now it's like you just have these warnings on the packages, and it doesn't seem to discourage people from smoking very much, but it absolves them of all responsibility, so they get to keep selling tobacco. There was no settlement that ever said, oh, you can't sell your product anymore, stop killing people. That was never discussed. It was only a matter of saying, how many innocent lives have you taken so far, and now from now on, you're not going to take it, you're not going to kill anybody unless you tell them first very clearly that you plan to do that. That's what we've settled into as being okay. We are weird, and it's no wonder we're living on a doomed planet, right? Where we just sit there and go, oh well, what can you do? Global warming. Yeah, too bad. I guess I wish we had done something sooner, even though Al Gore like screamed at us like 30 years ago. We are an incredibly stupid species, aren't we? All right, and with that note, I'm going to wrap it up. We can all contemplate that into the holidays, and I'll see you guys again next week. All right, next week is going to be the last webinar of the year, so really, like, set your calendar. Last webinar of the year. Not going to do one Christmas. Not going to do one New Year's, which are both Wednesdays. And so the next time I will see you after next week is going to be all the way until like the 8th of January. And then we're going to have plenty to talk about, because then it's going to be like 2 weeks for inauguration, and earnings are going to be starting, and it'll be crazy. So enjoy your rest time after next week. Have a good 2 weeks of rest, because it's going to go crazy after that. All right. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate it. Take care.